Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, brilliant. Should I mute on Discord?
No, because it's picking you up through Discord.
Ah, okay.
So the stream's audio is going through Discord.
Oh, I thought the stream's audio would be going through the same thing that's doing cameras.
Maybe in the future. I don't quite trust it at the moment, if I'm honest.
Fair enough.
Right. Vasily, you handsome devil, you're gonna be my little test subject at the minute. So tell me what you are thinking of these audio qualities. So I've got Vila at 140% right now. So
Hello.
tell me, still seems pretty quiet. So I'll go ahead and turn that up a bit.
Check 2, 1, 2.
Oh, I was turning. Oh, no wonder I was turning. I was turning Patrick up, not Vila.
Ah, that might make sense. I brought the microphone a bit closer to me. My scissor arm broke. So I need to buy a new one. Please don't ask any questions on how it broke. I don't know. I can't even say it happened doing something dirty. It just fucking broke.
I'll just talk like this for the next
With
2
your
hours.
mouth right next to the microphone.
Yeah,
Like this.
just to get that extra.
So very
Exactly.
close. Your lips grazing the tip.
In a world where physics doesn't matter, one man and his flying car.
But yes, welcome everybody to the first of hopefully many Spooky Sundays. We're going to be reading out a multitude of dark and creepy stories for your enjoyment here on a rather dreary Sunday evening. Lots of horrific weather, lots of rain, and quite its fair share of flooding. So hopefully we can take you away from it for the time that we're here and separate your mind from the bad things in the world. So what kind of stories do we have on the agenda then, guys? What story have you guys got?
Well, I found. Where is it? Oh, it's not on the document. Okay, I need to find it through a different thing. So I found a camping one because, like, everyone knows camping when you're in the middle of the deep, dark woods, everything's always just that little bit creepier. There's like the pitch black void everywhere around you and the unknown noises. That could be just an innocent animal, or it could be one of the like 401 creepy monster thingies that are coming to eat you alive. Urgh.
Definitely. What about you, Marauder? What kind of stories have you got for us?
Well, to be honest with you, we'll have to find out when we actually get to reading them. But first one seems to be about a guy who works in a textile mill or some sort of textile.
You should get a little bit closer to that microphone, but there.
How's this? Is this any better?
That's perfect.
Touch the tip.
Basically, this story seems to be about a guy who works in a textile mill. This is one of the stories that Vasily find. I'm reading in his stead tonight, as he sadly couldn't make it with us. So I'm not so sure as to what these stories are actually about, but I suppose we'll find out as we delve into these.
Most definitely.
With any hope, they'll be very, very riveting reads. I really hope.
Hopefully. I've got a couple of stories here. I got two. A nice lengthy one. However, I may have a little look for another one or two, depending on how long we go on for and how people are feeling the night. Let us know once you found your story, Vila, and you can kick us off.
Oh, actually, I can just get it through our Discord chat, can't I?
You
I'm trying to
could.
go about it the really long ass stupid way, and it's just like there's a link right within a conversation.
There is. There
Oh my
is.
god.
We have been using Discord a lot for this.
Which if you want to join our Discord community, I think you should. We're always about on Discord. Come in and join us. Have a nice little chat.
We are.
We only bite if you ask.
Not me. I do it without consent. I I want
He's
to come back.
feral.
I
I
do not.
apologise.
I want to
He
come
is a
back.
bit
I
feral.
give no consent.
He is feral.
Yeah, dude, I'm literally a pound shop Tarzan. How you can't get any more feral than this?
True. Are you both watching the chat too, so you can respond in the meantime?
I am. I've got it up on my TV. So I've got what's going on in my laptop in front of us. Then behind that is a TV with the stream on, and then I've got to be reading stories off the tablet.
Wonderful. See, for me, I've got over here, I've got Discord, and I've got all my camera settings, and then over here I've got the stream manager. Over here I have OBS. Down here I have an iPad that lets me change my scenes, and over here I've got my MacBook that lets me read my stories. And up here, what everybody's on, I've got my phone, which is my camera, which is definitely one way to do it, I will say.
I mean, that you've got more monitors than what I could ever. I literally just have one monitor there, which has chat and the actual stream in it, and then I've got a second monitor. Both of them are split. Both of them are split. Fucking just discovered this fucking feature that that lets you split screen the tabs on the Opera browser. Brilliant. Subscribe to Opera.
Opera is a decent browser. Used to use it myself, but then I needed something even more lightweight, so I've gone for a more open source, really resource light browser, because I often have a lot of tabs open for a lot of different things. So I needed that resource light browser. Right. Are you ready, Vila?
I am.
Right. JC. JC, you like Vila's makeup? Here's a close up of Vila.
Aw, thank you. Hang on. I tried.
I'm sad. JC. I haven't cheeky JC's breaky, so I'm jealous.
Ooh,
Ready whenever you are, Vila.
is this something on my end happening or what? I'm confused.
What's the issue?
Maybe.
You're fine on our end.
Oh, I can't hear Jordan at all. Has he died?
I don't know.
That's because I muted in Discord to not distract.
Ah, okay. Right,
I will
sorry.
mute.
So I'll start reading.
Right, take it away.
So this is from r/no sleep, and it's by user not underscore necessarily. There are only 5 of us on this camping trip. We keep counting 6. There are bright flashes of red in the sky, as if someone was waving around a flare light from space, faint but noticeable. We all made UFO jokes, and I laughed as we nailed our tents into the ground. I knew for sure there were 5 of us. We have all been friends since early middle school, and we're celebrating our high school graduation with this getaway camping trip. The flashes of red must have stopped randomly as we made conversation while fixing up our tents. Dave managed to put his tent together the fastest, and told us he was going to find some branches for the fire. I remember how he had worked with me at the local gas station last year. We used to do the night shifts together, and it had made working at that desolate gas station much more fun than it was supposed to be. There was also Eric in the corner, still reading his tent manual, fidgeting with his signature round glasses. I wasn't as close with Eric as I was with the others, but I still remember sitting with him in maths class and copying his homework one time. Ava was also there talking with Sally, my cousin. Both had decided to team up and work on one tent at a time. I also have clear memories of them, hanging around at school in our usual places. In fact, I even knew Ava's younger brother, as he used to beg to go with us wherever we went. I bring all this up because I'm sure that there were 5 of us, including me, and that I knew everyone in the group. So Dave had went to get some branches. As we pulled out some foldable chairs and set them up around the fire pit. I remember feeling uneasy as the sun set and darkness began to consume the forest. The shadows of trees elongated around us as the minutes tickled by. Eric went to get a flashlight from his bag, while we wondered what was taking Dave so long. He appeared soon after, the harsh rustling sounds of the bushes signifying his return. We were all buried in our chairs at this point, covered by our jackets. The temperature had dropped quickly and a slight breeze was beginning to pick up. Geez, you guys weren't even bothered to pull out a chair for me, Dave said as he arranged all the branches in the pit. We had set up 5 chairs around the fire. I tried to rationalize the situation, but no matter how hard I focused, my head felt like it was underwater. I had perfect clarity up until that moment, but when I tried to focus why 5 chairs were occupied when Dave hadn't sat down yet, my head seemed to stop working, as if something was reaching in and pulling out my thoughts. Instinctually, I felt even more uneasy now, and I had placed why. The whole forest had gone silent. I looked around at the faces of others and could tell that they had felt the same. Eric was fidgeting with his fingers, trying to scan around the group and spot the extra person, but it was futile. I scanned every face, each etched in worry and furrowing in frustration, except for... It's all right, I'll get the chair myself, Dave said, breaking the silence and somewhat alleviating the tension. I got up and offered to help him. He looked into my eyes and nodded knowingly. We headed away from the fire pit towards the tents, but I kept my eyes glued on our group. How many people are here? I whispered to Dave, as he looked around and realized that we had indeed only packed 5 chairs. In fact, every person had brought their own with them. They were heavy to carry, and we wouldn't bring any extra needlessly. There's 5, right? I mean, there's 5 chairs, Dave replied. His voice wavered as he spoke. No, I think one of us forgot our chair, I said. Excuse me. No, I just think maybe one of us forgot our chair, I said. My mind was struggling to address the issue head on now, sought to find a rational excuse instead. I didn't quite feel in control of my thoughts. It felt like swimming in a dream, and I tried to force myself to think about who the 6th person was. My head would begin to throb. Yeah, that sounds about right, actually, Dave said, relaxing and heading back to the group. When we walked back to the fire pit, and the circle of chairs, 2 chairs were empty. One for me and one for Dave. Everything was adding up now, though, we all agreed, it wasn't before. Sally suggested we were all probably tired after a long hike to get here, and probably just needed some sleep. She could have been right. We were all sleep deprived from waking up very early today to make it on time. Ava brought out the drinks. The whole 6-pack was emptied. We all moved closer to the crackling fire for warmth as we took sips from our cans and reminisced on memories of last year. Ava was in the middle of telling us about that one time she went home with weird things happening in her house when I got these sudden chills, despite the pleasant warmth of the fire. What felt cosy and safe moments ago felt wrong now, all because I realised that there was a crucial detail I missed. Who started the fire? I asked, completely interrupting Ava in the middle of her story and breaking everyone else's immersion. Everyone looked momentarily annoyed until they realised they had no answer. Once again I scanned the faces staring back at me, all barely illuminated by the light from the fire, all familiar and pale from fear. Wasn't it you, Dave? Eric asked. Dave shook his head. I think the person standing behind Jenny did it, Sally said, looking over at me. I whipped my head around so quickly it hurt. My heart was pounding in my ears. There was nothing behind me except for the encompassing darkness of the woods. Staring at all those dark trees behind me made me feel exposed. I felt like a lost bird in a vast field. Wait, I mean, I don't know, Sally said. Her eyes had gone wide and she was shaking visibly. She continued to look around frantically as Ava moved over to her, placing her hands on her shoulders and trying to calm her down. I think we should leave this place, Ava stuttered. Yeah, something just doesn't feel right, but I can't put my finger on it, Dave said. But it's so dark out in the forest now. We'd probably get lost if we leave now, someone else said. Yeah, I think we should stay the night and leave as soon as we can tomorrow, Eric agreed. I tried to protest, but realised Eric was right. The woods harboured an oppressive darkness, within which navigation would be near impossible. Let's not sleep in our separate tents, just to be safe, Sally said. We all agreed. We only brought one-person tents with us, but we could squeeze 2 if we tried. That way, no one would be alone that night. Following this conversation, we all got up and made our pairs. I went with Dave, and Sally, like always, went with Ava. Eric kept complaining that he didn't have a pair, but we reassured him he did. He wouldn't accept it. I felt like at some point we all realised that there were only 5 of us, and suddenly we were all huddling up in the middle of the clearing. Why do we keep thinking there are 6 of us here? Eric asked, sweat dripping down his face despite the cold. We had nearly left him all alone. We had nearly left him all alone, on his own, under the assumption that there was another person. My stomach turned as I squeezed, my eyes shut, and tried to mentally recap everyone here. My head throbbed, but I kept pushing it. There's me, Dave, Eric, Ava, Sally, and I was pointing at each of them as I said their name. I retched and emptied the contents of my stomach on the ground when I got past Sally. The left side of my head felt like there was a knife stuck in it. My vision was blurry. Dave held me up to stop me from collapsing, and we all wordlessly started to move towards the tents as someone put the fire out. Dave helped me into a tent while the 4 outside discussed what to do. I could only focus on snippets of the conversation as the excruciating pain beating against my skull came and went in waves. Sally had the brilliant idea of arranging 3 tents together so their openings faced together at right angles in a sort of U shape, so that we could sleep as close as possible and also limit the entrances to our tents. Dave was about to go to help as they worked outside, but I clutched his hand and asked him to stay with me. The tents took some time to arrange. I started to feel better once everyone got settled into their tents. A quick head count confirmed there were 5 of us. Eric would have to sleep in his tent alone, but he was more comfortable with it since all the tents were very close together now. Looking back, I think he was just trying to put a brave face on for us. I regret that moment deeply, letting him sleep in his tent alone. He was always less integrated in our group, and knew that none of us would pair with him. Just before going to bed, we all agreed to leave as soon as the sun rose in the morning. I remember taking one last look outside the tent into the forest before trying to fall asleep. The wind had picked up, and the tree branches were swaying gently. Beyond our clearing was just pure darkness. I felt like the trees were closing in on me. With the faint moonlight illuminating our clearing, I turned my head to look over the 2 tents we had left and saw someone standing next to them. Despite the circumstances, sleep came quickly and easily. Ava's shrill scream woke me up in the middle of the night. Dave and I ripped our tent door open to find Sally and Ava looking into Eric's tent. We pushed them aside. Eric's sleeping bag was rolled up. He was still inside it, his head in the center, face contorted in utter agony. The rest of his body was rolled around it, with the blue fabric now dripping dark blood. Dave zipped up the tent door. Ava was in shock. Her eyes became glassy and unfocused. Sally was shaking her repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. Dave picked up his torch and yelled at us to get up and run. We had left the campsite behind and entered the trail we had come from. The 5 of us huddled together, Dave leading in the front as he cast his weak flashlight over the path so we could see it. All we had to help us get through this 2-hour trail was a small white circle of light. Even the moon failed to illuminate our surroundings through the dense foliage. Ava tripped and fell, twisting her ankle. We came to a stop. Someone said they knew how to splint it, so we could keep going. They dragged her into the woods instead. It happened too quickly for any of us to process. Sally was about to run after Ava when Dave held her back. She struggled and managed to free herself by there. Right. She struggled and managed to free herself, running into the trees to follow the echoes of Ava's screams. I was about to run after her, but Dave held me by the shoulders and shook me hard. "We need to get out of here, Jenny, please," he said. I hesitated, but jolted into motion again when Sally's voice was cut off abruptly. She had been calling out Ava's name as she ran after her. Dave and I continued to run down the trail, trying to get to our car so we could get out of here. There was nothing we could do. At some point, there were 3 of us running on the trail, Dave and I shoulder to shoulder, while someone followed us closely behind. "Dave, who's behind us?" I gasped. My heart was threatening to burst through my rib cage and my legs burned. He looked at me, confusion transformed into fear on his face, and then into rage. "You keep running," he told me as he produced a pocket knife from his pants. He handed me the car keys, which I nearly dropped. Then he turned around suddenly and jumped at whoever was behind us. I continued to run in fear as the sounds of struggle grew behind me. I tripped and tumbled through the trail for what felt like hours. I didn't allow myself to stop. I almost cried when the trail ended and I walked onto the familiar car park. Not wasting a second, I ran to the car and started it up, accelerating out of that forest and onto the highway with mere seconds. I'm typing this post out at rest stop. My phone has finally regained service and I've called 911 to try and explain the situation. I don't think they believe my version of events, but they sent a car my way regardless. As I wait, the sun is finally starting to rise. After I hit the post button on this, I'm going to check why the person in my back seat has been so silent the whole time.
Wow.
And that's the end of that one.
That was really, really good, actually. I enjoyed that. That was really good.
Funnily enough, I said that with my mic muted, and you said the exact same thing that I did. Yeah, that was actually really good. That was pretty
Sorry,
interesting.
I stumbled over my words a bit. I tried to restart the sentence to make editing easier on you.
You're all good. Well,
Right. I've seen amateur dramatics and fuck up. And they've been practicing weeks. Don't worry, you did a good job. You did a good job.
Thank you. Like, so you guys liked that one?
that was good.
Mm.
That was good.
I can see that becoming a movie so easily.
Hmm.
Like,
So,
I love it as a short story, but I do believe that like the person that wrote it could make it into like a much longer story because like that is such a good idea. Like when I first read it, I started to wonder like that UFO thing, did something happen and a part of the friend group was erased from their memory?
Yeah.
And then it's like they're a bit screw loose and was like, there are 5 people, there are 5 people. If I get rid of one person, then I'll be the 5th person and they'll remember me.
Hmm.
But not the case. It sounds like it was some crazy alien killing.
Yeah, definitely. It was
I
so
mean,
much happened as well. It
Yeah.
reminds me a lot like the Skinwalker types that that hero, you know the ones I
Hmm.
mean.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. God, that was.
Mm.
I'm
What does
still trying to process the whole story, man.
it went from 0 to 100 so very quickly, like, but when you look back on it, they put all the seeds there throughout. Like the use of someone constantly, like, oh, someone said that. Someone suggested we stay the night, not leave. Like, they made sure they stuck it out constantly of dropping this. There's this extra person manipulating events, doing stuff like the fact that 6 beers were taken when there should be one left over. They they absolutely put in all this extra little details that made it flow so well. I love it.
Definitely. Definitely. I believe it's my story next. Um. Again, it's gonna be r/no sleep. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer over to us here. So there's another r/no sleep story. When I spoke, it wasn't me by Mindless Turnip 5160. When I was 18 and my sister was 5, I was babysitting in our family's basement while my mom was in the shower and my stepdad was asleep. I should mention that my stepdad has the deepest, most distinct voice I've ever heard. Anyone who meets him comments on it, and even customers at his job who have only spoken to him on the phone request his assistance by saying the one with the deep voice. This will become important later. It was my mom's birthday, so she was taking one of those long showers, and I knew she'd be in there for a while. I'd taken out some toys and turned on the TV, which was the only noise in the house besides maybe the faint sound of the shower. Our basement was set up so that the sofa is directly against the wall next to the stair landing. When you're sitting on it, if you turn to the right, you can see straight up the stairs. In front of us was the rest of the room. TV, coffee table, etc. As a dumb 18-year-old who semi-loved taunting my sibling, I switched the channel to a scary movie. My sister glanced up at it briefly and proudly declared, "Sissy, I'm not scared." Of course, this took all the fun out of the situation, so I quickly turned off the TV and sat on my phone while my sister played on the floor with her toys. After a while, I heard a voice from the top of the stairs that sounded vaguely familiar, but could have been coming from no one in the house. Again, my mum was showering, I could still hear the water running, and my stepdad was asleep. It clearly wasn't his distinct voice. The voice was a woman's. My entire body ran cold, and I froze, knowing that if I looked to the right, I would see someone, or something, standing at the top of the stairs. I glanced down at my sister, who also stood frozen, tears in her eyes, staring straight at me. I didn't want to scare her, even though she was already petrified, so I calmly asked, "What's wrong, baby?" She whispered, as if not to be overheard by whoever was on the stairs, "Who was that?" I was still trying to stay brave, so I asked, "Who was what?" And she replied, "Who said that?" At that point, I knew she heard it too, and I knew I wasn't going crazy. I asked her what the voice had said, and she repeated back to me exactly as I had heard it. The worst part of the whole thing was what it said and how it said it. In the calmest, almost absent voice, whatever stood at the top of those stairs said, "Hey, Kaylee." Even typing it gives me the chills. That's my name. There was no emotion in the statement, but the small bit of inflection at the end made it clear it was a question. And it was a question for me. There was no way I was going to look up those stairs, and as I reached for my sister, she scrambled up and sat on my lap. We both stared straight ahead while we waited for my mum to finish her shower. After we heard the door open and her footsteps coming down the hall, about 10 minutes later, I was finally able to move. I carried my sister up the stairs and asked my mum if she had called me. She obviously said no. How could she? And she was right. There was no way it could have been her. My stepdad was still asleep. The voice had been a woman's. After explaining the whole situation to my mum, it dawned on me the voice sounded familiar because it was my own. My mum was brought to tears just by hearing the story and seeing how affected my sister and I were. She immediately believed us. This wasn't the last time we heard that voice either. My mum often calls me to let me know she's heard my voice calling for her, but saying words I'd never use or things I wouldn't say, things like "mummy" or "I need help." I don't live in that house anymore. I'm rarely there, and I haven't called my mother mummy since I was a child. When I did still live there, though, I would often hear my own name. Once I even heard myself say, "Bless you," after I sneezed. Sometimes it was just whistling or the low pitch of myself humming tunes I never knew. And it was always in that same distant voice. My mum likes to joke about it now, warning any future partners or roommates that they absolutely don't want to live with me because, in her words, I'm followed by something. I'm starting to believe her. Things have happened to me since I was a kid, but I always brushed them off, maybe shared them with a few friends, and moved on. I don't think I've ever moved on from this encounter, though, and I don't think I ever will escape the sound of my own voice. That was a really short one, but I feel like that was good. I feel like that was a
Yeah.
solid story.
It's a weird. It's kind of. It is kind of like. It kind of feels almost like those Benadryl trip stories
Hmm.
from like Tales. You know the ones I mean.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of
Definitely.
reminded.
Your
Def-
microphone isn't picking you up a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I moved away from it a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely got that creep factor to it.
100%. 100%.
I forgot my fucking camera. Yeah, I didn't want to look like an idiot in winter. But yeah, it's definitely got that sort of creep factor to it. What do you
Yeah.
think, Vila?
I zoned out trying to find the extra story, so there wasn't dead air. And I'm really sorry.
My favorite part about the story is how it plays on the human sense of when you know you're being watched. You know that feeling when you're just there and you just feel like there's eyes on you.
Yeah.
I like how the story plays on that, like the fear of not turning to the right because you know that there's something there, and you know hearing your own voice speaking back at you or speaking to you and you haven't said anything. I like that. I really like that one.
Also, I guess feels into that fear of I guess like replacement. Because like if they're mimicking you, what else can they do? Who else are they able to mimic? Can you trust anything anymore? And like, are they trying to take over and replace you? Why are they using your voice? What is the purpose of it?
Exactly. It's
No.
difficult. But that was good. That was by Reddit user Mindless Turnip, as I said, on the No Sleep um subreddit. Very, very good story. Very, very good story. What have you got for us, Mr. Marauder?
Okay then. So I've got a story by a Reddit user named Newbie63. The story's called "They Never Listen, They Never Believe, but I'll keep trying because that's all I can do, and that's all I'm ever able. Sorry, that's all I've ever been able." So I've been working at a textile mill factory for 40 years now. I've seen them come and go, both the living and the dead. So when Sarah walked in that morning, bright-eyed and full of hope, my heart sank. They always look like that at first. They never listen. They never believe. Something about her reminded me of myself, decades ago, before I learned the true nature of this. The memories flood back whenever a new face appears. Emily in 92, she had that same determined walk. Head held high, despite the whispers from the old timers. She lasted 3 weeks before the cutting machine claimed her. Maria in 98, her laugh could light up the whole floor. Until the day she answered the call for help that came from no living throat. And then there was Kate in 03, Lisa in 07, Amanda in 12. The list grows longer every year, and I force myself to remember each name, each face, each story. Someone has to carry their memories. I watched Sarah fill out her paperwork, her hand steady and if only she knew those forms really meant. Not just employment agreements, but potential obituary waiting to be written. The factory hasn't changed much since I started started here in 1985. The same industrial lights flicker overhead, casting long shadows between the rows of machinery. The air still carries a distinct mix of cotton fibers and machine oil, but now it carries something else too. Whispers, echoes, and the lingering presence of those who never left. I remember my first day like it was yesterday. Margaret, the floor supervisor then, gave me the same tour that I now give to others. She seemed distracted that day. Her eyes constantly darting to empty corners of the room. I understand now that what she was seeing. She didn't make it to retirement, losing to the cutting machine in '93. Sometimes I still hear her counting inventory in the storage room. I try to warn them all in my own way. During Sarah's lunch break, I pulled her aside. My hands were shaking. They always do now, after what I've seen. There are things you need to know about this place, I told her, watching her young face at any sign of misunderstanding. When you hear someone asking for help with their machine, don't go. Never go alone. Always verify with at least 2 other people that someone else needs help. The voices, they're not always who they claim to be. I remember giving the same warning to Jennifer in '05. She laughed it off. 3 days later, we found her by the spinning wheel. The ghost that called her had worn my voice. Sarah nodded, but I could see the skepticism in her eye. They all have that look at first, that mixture of concern and pity for the old woman who spent many years among them. Some think I've inhaled too much cotton dust. Others assume that the isolation has gotten. If only it were that simple. Back in '97, I tried to document everything. I kept detailed records of every incident, every pattern I noticed. With the way machines would run slightly different speeds just before someone died. The cold spots that would appear in new places. The voices that sounded just a little too perfect, too familiar. The management found my notebooks during a routine locker inspection. They sent me to 3 different psychiatrists. I learned to keep my observations to myself after. I watched Sarah during her first week, noticing how quickly she picked up the work. She had good instincts around the machines, respected their power, but she was also kind. Too kind. When Lucy from packaging called out sick, Sarah volunteered to cover her part of the shift. She didn't know what Lucy had died in '01. And sometimes her ghost still punches in for the night shift. I was in the break room when it happened. My sandwich sat untouched as I heard the commotion, running footsteps, a machine's terrible grinding, then silence. I knew before I even got up, they'd used my voice again. I ran to the spinning room, my arthritis forgotten in the moment, but it was too late. I am always too. The spinning wheel was still humming, threads tangled in impossible ways. Sarah's body lay motionless, her hand still reaching out where she thought I had been standing, asking for help with a jammed mechanism. Worst part is the after. Police investigations, safety inspection, the grief council. They never find anything wrong with it. They never question why it's the same machine, same circumstance. Reports read operator error, failure to follow safety. But how do you report that a ghost asked for help? How do you explain that the voice calling out in distress wasn't human at all? Sometimes I wonder if I'm part of the curse too. Doomed to what? To warn, but never. 40 years of the same story, different faces. The ghosts never take me. Perhaps that's my real. The next morning, I stood in my usual spot, watching them cover Sarah's body. The machines hummed their eternal. and I could already see their ghost forming in another shadow, another voice that would call out for help. In 40 years, I've learned to recognize the different types of ghosts. The fresh ones glow brighter, still clinging to the last moments. Sarah's had that same desperate gleam I've seen all too many times before. They all start the same way. Confused, angry, desperate to understand why. Some fade with time, becoming mere whispers of the dark. Others grow stronger, learning to mimic voices and manipulate. I return to my station, as I always do. The only living soul among the machines and their ghostly. Sometimes, in the quiet moment between shifts, I catch glimpses of Emily, Maria. They watch me with perhaps wondering why I survived and didn't. There was a time, years ago, when I tried. I made it as far as the parking lot before the weight of the responsibility pulled me. Who could warn the new ones if I left? Who would remember their names, their story? Who would know how to look for signs, to question the familiar voices in the night shift? Stayed. Coming as much a fixture of this place as the ghosts themselves. Tomorrow, someone new will walk through those doors, and I'll try again. I know I probably won't make a difference, but that's. Keep trying, keep warning, keep remembering. This is the least I could do for the soul trapped place of endless shifts and eternal over. Factory stands as it always has. A monument, progress and product. Windows gleaming with the morning sun. But I know its true name. It's not. It's a gathering place, a repository of voices that never quite. And I remain its sole living, keeper of its dark, guardian of its growing collection of shadows. As the afternoon shift begins, I hear Sarah's voice for the first time, calling out from under near the spinning wheel. Perfect. Too perfect. Just. I close my eye and whisper prayer for whoever walks through those doors. They never. But I'll keep, because that's all I've ever. It's the end of the story.
That was pretty good. A quick suggestion: you might want to tilt your microphone a bit. You cut out a few times in this. No worries.
Okay. How's this? Is this any better?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that was a good story.
Cheers. Thank you
That
very much.
was so cool. Like, for story kind of giving so little, it gave, if that makes sense. Like, there was no like scary. This person's monologue, you know, like all the shit that they've gone through, and I like stuff like that because it's not like they're building up this scary story and they're talking about all this things and like all the ghosts and like da and all like creepy jump scare, and it's just this woman's monologue of her experience of what's happening there and this dilemma that she's having. It's I like stories like that as well. It's kind of refreshing for them to not only be the scary stories with the very much like here with it's as if it's happening as it is right now.
It's quite full on, isn't it? Like that's
Yeah,
the
I feel
that's
so
kind of the.
awful for that person. So sad. Sorry.
Definitely, definitely. But just the whole way that the story builds on itself, I feel like is very creative and very, very good. It gets to the point and it does it well.
Do you agree?
Whew. Are you almost ready to do another one, Vila?
Yep.
Let us know once you're ready,
I
and we
just
will
need to get
transition
to
over.
the saved bit. I liked this one. Very SCP vibes.
Ooh.
I love a good S.
We are definitely going to do a SCP Sunday one day. Sunday one day, woo!
Oh, I like that. Would be cool.
That
But
would
yeah,
be
this one
fun.
isn't a.
There's a lot of SCPs. My favorite ones have to be Kita classes, bro.
Oh, I agree,
Just
dude.
the
My favorite
world
one,
destroyers, like.
dude. One of my favorite ones. Never remember, but it invoked this image that was like it basically it's like any class 5 civilization ends up getting overtaken by this thing, and it just erases all the memories and everything about them. Like once it's observed, it just starts to pixelate and disappear. And it invoked this image of in my head of like a load of like soul in no like with like electric blue outlines just sort of suspended in place,
Yeah.
just glitching and all these pixel effects
Mm.
going on this massive like plane. And like and when I say plane, I don't mean aeroplane. Yeah.
Like
Um
a plane of existence.
Yeah.
like a plane that's like a step, almost like in front of a mountain. You know what I mean? Like a long field. Just
Yeah.
en masse. And it was so fucking good. I need to find that story. Like I absolutely need to find that one, because that was a good one.
Definitely, yeah, that sounds
Oh,
good.
we can definitely try and find it. Right. So this one is, like I say, SCP like. It's not an official SCP by any means. But yeah, it's got them vibes. So this is from No Sleep, obviously, by user World Away Tweedy. There is a customer none of us are allowed to serve. I work at the Lone Star Diner, off the road from Carson City to Reno. Diner has, of course, been changed for obvious reasons. More on that later. Why do I work at a Lone Star Diner, off the road from Carson City to Reno? Well, because, kind stranger, my life plans didn't work out. Generally, if you're caught working at a diner past college, specifically one in the middle of nowhere, it means things aren't going so hot. But still, why this diner? Why Lone Star specifically? I'm aware you probably aren't actually asking these questions, but I nonetheless believe they deserve a response. Of all the diners in the world, what makes Lone Star so special is the pay. The pay is fucking great. There are maybe 10 other diners within a 30-minute drive from where I live. Most of them average out to a little over minimum wage. Meanwhile, Lone Star is whipping up a mean $50 an hour. And that hourly rate is due to one single solitary reason. No matter what anyone tells you, it's because of him. My first day on the job was fine, more or less. I'd worked customer service before, so I felt like I could run with the strange surprises that came unique to diners. I was able to adapt to the inconsistencies of the rules pretty quickly. Unwritten rules like some areas in the restaurant need to be spotless at all times. Others, boss lady couldn't give less of a shit about. Serve customers quickly, but not too quickly, arsehole. Customers here don't actually like it when you show up too fast. Give them some time to feel the floor under their boots, to miserably stare ahead, and mourn what could have been. You know, diner stuff. They're here because they want to be alone. Pardon the contradiction. Of course, vaguely defined, whispered only by ghost rules extended to the cooks as well. If you were somehow secretly celebrity chef Marco Pierre White in the flesh, your mandate was to keep your damn prowess to yourself. Your job is to make the classics as decently as possible. Not too bad, but not amazing. Just poor enough to be really good. That is what the customers are here for. As the weeks unfolded, I rose, or I suppose crouched, to the occasion quite well. You want intentional, pinpoint precision mediocrity? You've come to the right person. Most of the patrons just wanted coffee and brunch brought to them at medium speed, with a semi-predictable cadence of waiter or waitress check-ins afterwards. Done, done, and done. Not one for subtlety, one day I finally decided to ask my boss the question in the middle of a shift. I didn't want to ruin a good thing by doubting it, but fuck me if I wasn't a little curious. Not full on, look a gift horse in the mouth, more a sceptical side eye. Why $50 an hour? She didn't even look up from her task at the register, methodically counting out bills. Said it on your first day. You got to be good at following the rules. And when it's an important rule, you better be damn well perfect. High expectations here. I made a face. Right. High expectations. You think I'm joking? No, ma'am. I guess I just... Why did I even speak up? I just think you're running a really cool operation here, cooler than you might realise. It's still work, but the whole thing seems fair. Christ, my waffling skills were abysmal. Add to that the list of intentional mediocrity. Booyah! She looked up from her duties and shot me a stern look. I don't run this shit, and following the rules here means that you take care of yourself. I'm sorry? I am your employer, sure, and I'll pay you well to be here, sure. But you should be aware there is plenty more going on here than just you and I and this diner. She glanced down at her watch, then sighed. I usually save this speech for the end of the month, but you already caught me halfway through it. So, the coal notes. If you don't think you have it in you to follow the instructions clearly, without protest, and without asking too many questions, then you should leave. Quit. No harm, no foul. A week's worth of pay on the house. The conversation sputtered shortly after that. I tried to find an opening to ask more about what she meant, but she was closed off to the topic moving forward. And you know what? That was fine. If she wanted me to put my head down and just do the work, I could do that. And work I did. And things were good. Mundane small talk with the customers was fun, my co-workers were friendly, and I was getting paid well. I'd found a place to park the failures of my life, a place to build from. It must have been a Saturday, I think, when I first noticed him. An occupied seat in the far corner of the diner. No idea how long he'd been sitting there and waiting, though he certainly looked patient. I had the strange inkling that he'd been left hanging for quite some time, though I can actually remember seeing him enter. Brown corduroy shirt, short hair, mid-50s it seemed. A reasonably calm smile, normal-looking dude. I started to make my way out from the back and headed towards him. Immediately, I felt a tight grip on my arm. It was Melanie, my boss, with a forceful clutch, enough to make me drop my notepad. Her fingers tightened around my forearm, sharply pinching the skin. "Important rules," she said. "What? You remember our chat about rules? Well, this is the most important one, okay?" "Okay. That man over there in the corner," she motioned to the man who had caught my attention, sitting upright, his hands softly clasped together, coy smile across his face. "You don't go up to him. You don't say a word to him." "But he's a customer." Her hold intensified. She was hurting me, almost as if she was taking out some sort of unseen anger on me. "I'd like to ask you right now to be smart enough to not ask questions and just follow the instructions. You don't go to his day table. You don't talk to him. You don't look. Oh, sorry. I'd like to ask you to be smart enough not to ask questions and just follow instructions. You don't go to his table. You don't talk to him. You can look at him. You can shout across the room at him if you'd like, though I can't imagine why you'd ever need to do that. But you do not approach him, and you do not take his order. Or..." A sharp exhale through the nose and a shake of the head and a glare from my manager. "It's different every time, but it ain't pretty." I watched him from the short distance I'd been afforded. It was hard not to. She did too. Unlike the other customers here, I didn't get a sense that he was here to be alone, to reminisce, or to take part in the comfort ritual of lackluster eggs Benedict over rye. Instead, I had the sense that he was just curious, mild-mannered, content, but curious. My shift ended not long after, so I didn't actually get a chance to watch him leave. Regardless, the experience of seeing him and learning about the rule he was content. My shift ended not long after, and so I didn't actually get a chance to see him leave. Regardless, the experience of seeing him and learning about the rule he was connected to left a bizarre, dampening feeling on my mood. I liked my job. I liked coming home, unwinding. I didn't mind being in the middle of nowhere. It felt nice to look up at the empty sky filled with stars, to see them shimmer and shine, and even occasionally shoot across. I made a wish that things in my life would stay simple. I started to get a sense of his cadence. He'd usually show up once a month. The rare times I got to see him, I tried to squeak in the odd question to my boss, like, "Who is he? Where does he come from? And has anyone spoken with him?" All mechanically met with, I don't know, and "If you're scared, you're welcome to quit." Then, as fate would have it, one day, boss lady fell incredibly ill. My co-workers and I had to convince her to go home midway through her shift, her sickness falling uncomfortably within the usual 1 to 3 day window at the end of the month when our customer would typically appear. And of course, there he was, right after she went home. To my benefit, the other waiters and waitresses working the rounds were all aware of his presence and knew exactly what to do whenever he arrived. All of them knew to steer clear of him. Nevertheless, driven by a foundational curiosity that I just couldn't shake, I used this opportunity to go for it. I shouted a single thing across the floor, knowing Melanie wasn't there to chide me. "Hello, sir. What brings you here?" I asked him. He turned his head from his fixed position in his seat and put a hand to his ear. Clever. I said, "What brings you here?" I called out again, a few notches louder this time, garnering some odd looks from our Thursday patrons. To my surprise, he spoke back. I'm not sure why I was expecting his voice to carry the tone of some twisted, demented demon. Maybe the fear Melanie had instilled in me? The man sounded exactly how he looked. "I'm sorry, dear," he said. "I'm afraid I'm not sure what you're saying. Can you come over here and ask me again?" Nope, I was good. "And I don't mean to be rude about the service," he continued, "but it feels as if no one has taken my order for quite some time now." I let the exchange end there, diverting my attention back to the other guests. As always, he'd eventually disappear without fanfare, without the clatter of the entrance bell, or any sight or sound of his steps across the diner floor. Our backroom conversations about him remaining dreadfully short while he was there. Just, he's here and he's gone. And the odd, when we really need to say it, I feel really weird about this. It took me a while to understand where my brazenness to address this strange middle-aged man came from. In truth, I was just afraid. His presence and all of the questions tied to being at our diner were disrupting the otherwise great arrangement I had felt I had. It seemed right, in the moment, to stand at the very edge of my bravery and say something to him. Of course, now that he was gone, I just felt worse. The next week, I was invited to something pretty interesting at work. I generally have a good amount of visibility into what Melanie, boss lady, does on a daily basis. The only element that remained elusive was her bi-weekly check-in with a particularly sharp-dressed agent-looking fella. There was a pretty consistent presence of state troopers, agents, and similarly uniformed men and women dropping into the diner. I seldom paid it mind beyond simply noticing it. Midway through wiping down the tables, only an hour or so into my shift, Mel swung by and said, "Hey, you want in the meeting with Big Boss if you have a few?" Oh, sorry. "Hey, want you in the meeting with Big Boss if you have a few?" The Big Boss? Sure, yeah, coming. Just, if you don't mind me asking, who is. She let her eyes speak her unwritten rules to me. Questions equals generally bad. Thank you for the reminder, ma'am. We manoeuvred into a back room and sat at a table. Across from us, already seated, was a man in a sharply tailored suit with a subtle earpiece in it. The aforementioned agent. The table was littered with small, messy stack of notes, papers, and documents. He made it a point to size me up, staring me up and down, uninterrupted, like a deer to the headlights. No concern at all about how awkward he was making it for me. Then he turned to Melanie. "How long's she been here?" He asked her in his gruff, western drawl. 6 months, she said. "You trust her?" "I trust her, yes." He let his eyebrows say, "If you say so," then went on. "All right, so apparently you had a visit from the wandering man last week. You," he said, motioning to Melanie, "were out, but you," attention now shifted to me, "weren't. Give me the lowdown." "The wandering man?" The agent caught the confusion in my eyes. "Jesus, you've told this girl nothing, haven't you?" he said to Melanie. "Sir, I know it sounds weird," she said, "but I personally feel as if the man is almost, I don't know, drawn to curiosity. Like maybe the less I say to those not already in the know, the better." Wandering man, the agent cut her off, is our nickname for the fella that sits in the corner of your fine little establishment. Or should I say the state's fine little establishment? Uh, I'm sorry? I asked. That's correct. The state's. Congratulations, ma'am. You're part of a government operation. The wandering man, not just a cutesy little nickname, but our legal definition of this tricky little problem, is a phenomenon we discovered many years ago. At the time, he just walked the desert landscape, chatting up unsuspecting strangers with bizarre questions. Everything fine, all hunky dory. A little weird, sure, but nothing illegal. However, sometimes things would happen because of him. Bizarre things, grisly things. I could see Melanie groaning, concerned at the picture being painted. Would this pique my curiosity? Have you guys, you know, taken him in for. I almost wanted to cut off my own stupid question, but he ran with it. Nope. Not because you don't want to, but rather because it might not be safe. The cosy mental image I'd held of this diner was starting to fracture. We have a reason to believe that he's a visitor, he said. From. I didn't attend another debrief after that. Not because I was barred, mind you. Rather, I just didn't want to know any more. My gut no longer held curiosity. There was just a low, aching dread there now. The agents and troopers, spaced out and seated amongst the eatery, were now just glaring reminders what my dingy diner job really was. The government cavalry would mostly show up around the end of the month window the wandering man was set to arrive in. When he'd appear, they wouldn't do much more than examine him from their distant tables, subtly scribbling notes. He'd always act the same. He would just sit there. He wouldn't give them, or us, the diner employees, much to go on. Speaking of employees, I remembered something Melanie told me after my first month of working here, that the work turnover at the diner was incredibly high. Knowing at the time what everyone got paid, it made absolutely no sense to me. Now, 7 months into the gig, alongside a completely new set of cooks, waiters, and waitresses from when I first started, I'd seen firsthand just how true her statements were. None of the leavers claimed as much, but I'm sure the underlying premise of who the diner was really for became subconsciously clearer to them during their time here, and it probably didn't sit all too well with them. I stayed, but not because of the pay. I'm actually not sure why I did. We had a new cast of rookie employees now, the ones who understood the vague terms of the situation, just as Melanie, I, and all former employees did, stuck around. Those who couldn't reconcile the situation with their inherent curiosity naturally filtered out. And then there was Malcolm. It was only his first week. He was a keener, mega keener. He bulldozed through the giant list of tasks and was already asking for the next batch of work to chew through. Anything he could get ahead of, anything he could step in for, anything he could learn. He was on it. He wanted to be as helpful as humanly possible. I think the salary of the role for a guy his young age was just too alluring for him. For our part, Melanie and I tried our best to get him to pace himself. We're both giving the spiel now. By this point, we'd more or less perfected it. There are things about this diner that are strange. Rules you have to follow and not think about. Rules that are concrete, immutable, non-negotiable, like gravity. He nodded. At that moment, I really believed he was internalizing my words. And if that doesn't work for you, and you don't think you can take care of yourself, then you shouldn't work here. There was always a visceral feeling in my stomach whenever I saw the wandering man in the corner during the same week that we were onboarding new staff. I'm sure Melanie felt it too. On those days, Mel and I would both work the till, and if we saw anyone coming out from the back, we'd stop them with a simple grab of the arm. Malcolm stepped out, and I did just that. A rough grab of his forearm, just like Melanie had done to me when I first started. He recoiled in surprise. "Remember our little chat about the rules we just had?" I said. He nodded meekly, as if he were already in trouble. I pointed to the man seated at the far table in the brown corduroy shirt, staring straight ahead, with what I believed at the time no real reason to be here. And I said, "You will not, under any conditions, serve that man. Do not go up to him. Don't talk to him. Pretend he doesn't exist." Malcolm lifted the garbage bag he was holding in his left hand. In my nervousness, I hadn't actually clocked what he was stepping out for. "Just doing garbage duty, ma'am," he said. "But understood." And then he left out the front door with his usual swagger. The dumpster wasn't as close as we would have liked, so I appreciated his willingness to take on this duty so soon into his employment. I turned back to observe the wandering man. We had a crowd of agents in attendance that day, scattered about the restaurant. The man wasn't one to speak up often. Today was an interesting exception. "Officers," he said, "if you have any questions, feel free to join me at the table and ask them." The agents around the room reacted, mainly with snickers. "Seriously, if you come sit with me, I'll be happy to spill it all, truly." Even more laughs, but no one bit. And yet, he continued pointedly, "I know you're curious. I know you take notes. I know you talk about me, and I know you built this establishment for me. I know you—" As I reconciled the fact that this was the most words I'd ever heard him string together in succession, I heard the chime of the bell. A door had opened. Malcolm was dusting his hands as he entered through the diner's side door, a door which was situated right beside the table the wandering man was seated at. It all happened so fast, and yet it played out in front of me excruciatingly slowly, as if it was a moment, a single solitary second, where I could have stepped in. The wandering man dropped any pretext of exchange with the agents, stopping his sentence midway and adopting a completely new demeanour. He played the role of a lonely, miserable, tired man and said, 30 visits, terrible service every time, in a pathetic tone, just as Malcolm walked by. Malcolm instinctively plucked a notepad from his chest pocket and turned his head to face the man. "Hey, I got you, Chief. I can have him ring something up for you. What are you—" And then Malcolm froze in place, and the wandering man's expression turned Cheshire cat wide. His neck alternated between tensing and fluttering with what seemed like to be undeniable excitement. The man started getting up from the table, and then, immediately, both of them were gone. Malcolm and the Wanderer had vanished out of existence entirely. The insanity of the moment was interrupted by the coded language I heard blared over a megaphone, nonsensical agent speak. that has been seared into my memory forever. Alert level black. Wandering target has compromised a civilian. I repeat, civilian has been compromised. And that was that. Melanie quit in the days after. She wasn't mad at me. She told me she always knew she'd leave after the 10th disappearance. Why that specific milestone was required, I have no clue. All I could do from that point was continue to work. On my commutes home or during lunch breaks, I would look up at the stars and put out the wish that Malcolm be brought back home, back from wherever he had been taken. The debrief with the agents brought me no solace. The exchange with them was simple and short. Where was he taken to? Answered with, he's gone now. With a perpetual dagger in my soul now, I had only the smallest of silver linings, if you can even call it that. A lesson. The lesson that I needed to be even more watchful, even more diligent, and on the days when the wandering man was visiting, the only server at the diner, no exceptions. I knew the agents weren't happy about that. None of them said it to me explicitly, but I could tell that they would want to learn. I knew the agents weren't happy about that. None of them said it explicitly to me, but I could tell that they would learn something new about him every time he whisked someone away after a mistake was made. It was weird. A weird Darwin setup that they had created. We were a zoo that they could use to learn more about a specific animal, a specific entity, a specific visitor. No dice. They'd have to watch him sit now or wait for him to do something different. I waited for 3 days stretch at a time at the end of the month that he usually appears in. Things were quiet up until that point. When he finally showed up, it wasn't what I expected. For the first time ever, I saw the wandering man walk right through the front door, in the dead of night, at the tail end of my shift. I was at the till, paralysed, as he took step after step to close the distance. And then he was right there, standing in front of me. I was sure, absolutely sure, that I was going to die. He smiled. Don't worry. I have my own little set of rules I play by, he said. I didn't say a word. This was no man's land right now. I know you've been curious about me. I've admired it from the moment you first spoke to address me. Cautious curiosity is a great thing to see in someone, especially in such a reckless species. Please just go. I'd like to answer a question about why I'm visiting. I'm sure you'd like to know why I'm here, right? I'm not curious anymore. I swear I'm not. He laughed. The answer is really painfully simple. This little game, this little charade I'm playing. It's just so unbelievably fun. Please don't kill me, please. You truly have a wonderful planet. I will return again soon, promise. Give me a month, maybe 2 this time. A serene, kind smile, delivered with kind eyes. I'll come back with a new game. And then he was gone. It took me a minute to realise that there was a cake box sitting on the counter beside me. Maybe it was there the whole time he was speaking to me. Maybe it materialised right after he left. I opened the box to find Malcolm's severed head, a blank expression on his face, sitting on a bed of poorly and confusingly organised flowers. almost as if there was an intention to create a floral arrangement, but no understanding what something like that would look like. On top of the horrific display, written in an almost childlike handwriting, was a note that read, "I brought him back just like you wished." The worst thing about being trapped at a diner in the middle of nowhere is that you realise that there really is nowhere else to run to. Every single part of our planet is blanketed by stars, by open sky. Someone could drop in any time.
Okay.
And that's that one.
Okay.
I do want to apologize, by the way, Vila. I
What did you
didn't
do?
realize my mic was actually unmuted when I was actually searching for my pop filter.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
saw the
don't,
message from.
I don't think we heard anything.
Oh, because I saw message from you, from Lord saying about how we mute during during stories.
The message was sent an hour before you sent the message. By the way,
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I saw it and I was like, oh shit,
it was
and then
sent an hour before that. Don't worry.
I checked my thing. And I was like, oh shit, I'm not muted. Oh fuck, I need to mute.
Dude,
So
it's good.
if you're doing that, Tempers would have spoken up, considering we're like cutting this up to put on YouTube.
That's
He
totally,
definitely would have said something.
that's totally okay.
You're all good, brother.
That
That was
What did you guys do?
that was a
That
good
was
story,
one of
man.
It was one of the most interesting stories, I think.
Really liked that one. Like, I think that story is like really fucking good. Yeah, it's like I said, it's so SCP adjacent, but it's not an official SCP. But the way they've made it is like, yeah, it is like how the SCP would act with the government shit being involved and trying to do a containment of it.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Does scream SP. Like I mentioned earlier. Some of it's terrible, but a lot of it.
Get closer to your mic, brother.
What? Oh,
You gotta get closer to your microphone. I know.
okay. How about this? Is this any better at all?
We told you, lips to the tip.
Of course. Hang on. Oh, is this any?
you
Oh,
get in there. You just gotta make
Yeah.
sure that you stick close to the microphone. Because yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, I do love SCP though. It is fucking great. Somebody's
is.
lighting fireworks behind my house. Can you hear them?
Well, it's certainly not me. So
I was about to blame you though.
Twitch McGee says that you need to take in the whole microphone, otherwise she can't hear you.
Hang on. Let me find the lube in my drawer. I'll see if I can.
Oh, I do like these like list of rule stories
Hmm.
that you get on Reddit. Like when I first started going through the stories, I was a bit iffy on them because they just felt this is like a random list of rules. But then I am actually they can be really good. Like, and then I got really into them.
There's
Definitely.
there's a YouTube short actually that kind of plays on this. I think it's called like Ignore It or something like that.
Mm.
And it basically follows this family who are trying to eat dinner, and they say in the start, they say like, whatever you do not pay attention, ignore it. And they're having their dinner, and this entity is coming around. And he's like, "Bleh," all that kind of creepy shit, you know, putting their hands on their shoulders. And next thing you know, they're trying to have a conversation, and the kid's like, "Oh," he's like, yeah, yeah." He's like, "Really good day in school today, Dad." And then one of them breaks the rule, and all hell breaks loose. And it was a beautifully done short. I love that.
Nice.
I'll have to find. Like if we're ever next time we're on Discord, I will dig that up and we'll watch that, because that was a hell of a video. I do know some good horror shorts on YouTube.
Yeah.
Twitch McGee is currently getting moist over corpse in the chat there.
Corpse. Like, yeah, I can't
Corpse
see the
husband.
chat, by the way, for some reason.
Oh God,
No?
corpse husband. I miss
Yeah.
his horror stories, man.
Same, man.
I can't. I absolutely hate it because like fucking normies broke corpse husband for us. Like he had his issues. Yeah, like lockdown happened, and then he started playing Among Us with like groups of people, and then his voice went like now he was being exposed to like a wider audience, even though he was already pretty well known, just in a more insular area. It was like everyone wanted to play with him because of his voice. And then because he got so big, normies were like, "Oh my god, let's try and find what corpse husband really looks like." Which there's a reason he doesn't show his face, and that's because like he has a very severe skin condition. He didn't want that out there. Like at that, and he didn't want that out there. And they completely violated his privacy. And like they even outed another person that wasn't actually him, saying it was him, and like it was awful. And like it just that after it was like, that's it, I'm not streaming anymore. Like fuck it, what? And it's so sad because like corpse husband was like, yeah, you're right, Twitch. His voice was due to his medical thing as well.
Yeah.
It's just sad that these assholes like ruined streaming for him, ruined like content creation for him. And like, I'm not saying it was only the normies, fangirls as well, and all that shit. Like, but it's
Yeah.
just sad that like just because someone is a streamer, it doesn't mean they owe you fucking anything.
Mm.
Right? Like, I don't care if you've donated hundreds of dollars to them. They don't owe you anything. They don't owe you a face reveal. They don't owe you their time. They don't owe you their adoration. They are a human that is entitled to their own fucking thing and their own life. They don't owe you shit. Like, sad to say when you idolize them so much, but they don't owe you anything. No one owes you anything in reality. Like, sucks. But that's the way the world is. No one owes you anything. It's nice when they give you something, but you're not inherently owed anything. Sorry, I really miss Corpse Husband's stories. He had the most
Yeah.
beautiful voice for stories.
Yeah, I'll be sad to say I've never actually heard of this guy until now, so I'll have to check some of it out.
Oh my god.
I'll definitely send like Corpse Husband has a very, very distinct, very deep voice. Very, very
Yeah.
deep, very, very atmospheric
Hello.
voice. And the way that he would read stories would just tickle that part of your brain just right. And
Oh god, yeah.
it's these fucking parasocial relationships that people develop that are the bane of most content creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have grown too parasocial these days with things. Like same with musicians as well. They suffer with the same problem with fans being so parasocial that, and I'm not talking about like just like metal musicians right now, but even pop musicians like Beyonce and all these other people that, you know, like are rich enough to live in gated communities. They suffer with the exact same issue of people constantly trying to uh, make their way into their personal lives, and it it is sad. It's fucking sad to see.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. And like one thing that I truly don't understand is you will find that there are grown ass adults, right, who will drive their children to these YouTubers' houses
Yeah, Jack Doherty used to do that.
and
Yeah.
then be like, how dare you not have take my 5 minutes out of your day for my kid? Like, why would you not like? How dare you like come out your house and like sign something for my kid?
Oh,
Like, why? Why
Why
would
are you
you?
at a stranger's house in the first place?
Like, why? Why would you
That's
say to your
crazy.
kid, "Yeah, let's go drive to a stranger's house and go camp outside of it"?
you know what? Um, before I make my next point, since this conversation has actually come up, my next story is actually something relative.
Ooh,
Okay. Okay.
So I can use this as a segue. I remember
segue.
there was an incident that happened at a show that I was at, right? We were at Static X in Cardiff. Brilliant band. I like what they're doing with the vocalist. Sue me if you don't like that, right? Um, um Dope were opening. They were the opening show, and they have like 20 minutes to play. They have like 20, 30 minutes, and then the vocalist got to get off, get in his makeup, set himself up for the headliner, and mentally prepare himself. There's a lot of shit with. So this woman, actually had a conversation with her at the end of this. She had the bright idea to just get a t-shirt, throw it up on stage at the singer, and the singer's there. He's just like holding his mic, and he's like, "Why did you just throw your dirty, smelly t-shirt at me? What's the deal here? Or why would you do that?" And then like there was silence, and he's just like, "Right, okay, look, I'll hand it off to ZZ Top over here, this security guard who literally looked like one of the singers of ZZ Top." And
Oh
he goes,
God.
"Oh, yeah, this guy, look, ZZ Top over here, he'll hand it back to you, all right? He'll hand it back to you. And then you can have your shirt back." Next thing I know, she comes up to me and she goes, "The singer of Dope is fucking dead to me." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, was it? Yeah. All he had to do was sign the t-shirt and throw it back to me. And me and Phil, we were just dumbfounded. We were just like, this woman is like, she's the one who threw the t-shirt. I mean, she acted like a Karen, you know what I mean?
Like, I'm sorry, but like normally, as a woman, when you like throw something on stage at the band, you are not expecting it back. It's kind of like a little like love token that you're throwing at the band, and like,
Yeah.
why would he think? Why would this woman think that he's going to instantly like, oh yeah, she wants me to sign it live on stage while I'm performing, and then throw it back to her when like once that's signed and thrown, anyone's going to try and grab it because it's a signed merch. No, they don't
Yeah.
care at that point who the fuck it used to belong to. And like I've thrown shit on stage at bands, mainly when I was like a teenager. Like the funniest one was I used to have this god awful like yellow bra. It was like canary yellow, and I'm a teenager at this point, so this is like training bra shit, right? It's not cute. It's like cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
And I like yoink, and it landed on the guitar like fuck. And like the guy's like, ew for the bra, but fucking shot. And it's like, I didn't even intend to do that. It was just like, but and now I look back and it's like, oh my god, like that is a grown ass man, and I'm a literal fucking minor throwing my underwear at him.
Don't worry.
Like
I have a
fucking yikes.
I have a story about me heckling a comedian that I'll tell you later on if I remember it. To be honest with you, I look back at that and I'm just like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, ever? But, drunk. But that woman at the end of it, apparently her son was really weird. According to Phil, he was really weird. He'd be like complimenting about his makeup and being like, oh, your makeup's really good, your hair is really good, and things like that every half hour of the fucking night. It was creepy. But the woman, like, I tried to sort of say to her, look, love, this isn't the 1980s. People don't throw their underwear on stage anymore because we actually have a thing called respect for the artist. People don't do that shit anymore.
No,
We're here to watch the show and enjoy it.
nowadays they just throw bottles of piss or go up on stage and slap them.
Yummy.
Yeah. I mean, I love watching videos of people trying to walk on stage, making the show about themselves, only for the lead singer or the other members to just boot them off the stage. I do like that, but I mean, ever since the whole Dimebag Daryl thing, I completely understand why people don't let audience on stage because and for
Dimebag
anyone who
Darrell?
don't know their story, it basically involves Dimebag Daryl playing with his band Damage Plan, and his brother was on stage. This is why, and a guy named something Gale, can't remember his name, walks on stage and just straight up pumps 5 shots into his face from a revolver. And ever since then, that it's completely changed the scene in that sense.
Oh my god.
It's it is one of the saddest stories. This guy was apparently obsessed with Pantera, but Twitch McGee says, just don't ever get Rick rolled by Rick Astley. And it's spelled like, oh, that Rick. I know, I saw the thing about them. Right.
Mr.
So,
Marauder, do you have strict plans at the 10 p.m. mark? Or will you be around a little bit after that?
I can stay a little longer, I think. I can stay a little longer. I don't think it's strict. But yeah, I'll if you want me to, I'll because this is my last story for the night. I can segue into this with
if you want to go ahead and just segue into your next story now, go for it.
Okay, this story is sponsored by Squarespace. Maybe Ground News, who knows?
Soon.
Oh yeah, wait. Zoom. So this story is written by a guy named Box Goblin, a Reddit user. And I think it's from r/no sleep. I'm not entirely sure, but it's called I Ended My True Crime Podcast After Meeting My Biggest Fan. I ran a successful true crime podcast called Eidolon. It covered missing person cases from legendary stories on Amelia Earhart to relatively unknown cases from recent news. I recently told my 100k plus followers that I was stepping away to focus on other projects, namely my day job as an audio engineer. Told my friends that I was taking a mental health break. All the interviews with grieving parents, friends, and lovers with no closure had chipped away at my soul. I needed to rest. Oh, sorry. I needed to rediscover the beauty in this world, forget the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. But the main reason I shuttered Eidolon, the reason I deleted all my audio files and contact sheets, the reason I promised myself that I would never touch the true crime genre again, pardon me, was due to one person, Channel Sun. According to his scant Patreon profile, Sam was located somewhere in the US, had plenty of discretionary income. donating to various true crime podcasts via the site. But he gave the most money to mine. Having donated over $5,000 to Eidolon for the past 2 years, usually through regular $200 payments, Charnel Sam was my biggest fan. My online conversations with Sam were brief and professional. I sent him a nice personalized thank you message. A nice thank you message each time he donated, and would announce his username at the top of my credits after each episode. Most of the time, my messages went unanswered, but on occasion, he would respond with a single cryptic sentence. It was always like floods to the grateful frame, catching moments gifted by time. I had no idea what that meant or what it had to do with my podcast, but it might have been to do with part of his online signature. Perhaps some famous quote missing an attribution. But if that were the case, I only send the attribution and not the actual message. I never thought much about it. I was just happy to receive such large and consistent donations. But if Charnel Sam wanted to send me a cryptic quote now and then, he was more than welcome. But everything changed a few weeks ago when I received this. Hey Brian, I have some information that I think could help solve Bertrand Hiker's mystery. I'd recently re-aired an episode on the Bertrand Hiker, 2 teenage girls who'd mysteriously vanished while hiking in the Bertrand Nature Preserve in northwestern Georgia, an area not far from my home in the Atlanta suburbs. The case was one of my most popular stories and one that launched my podcast. The disappearance of Heather Simmons and Alicia Gunderson were one of those local legends that everyone I grew up with knew, but never received such national attention. As such, it was relatively unknown. It was a relatively unknown missing person case when I recorded my first podcast episode. Though the girls were teenagers, they were not the attractive, white, blonde teens that received most of the media's attention. Heather was slightly overweight for her age, with lots of bushy, curly hair. The popular girls at school picked on her, called her Shamu. Alicia was pretty, but still an outsider in the small town of Bertrand. She was biracial with a white Norwegian father and a Nigerian mother. Her family had recently moved to North America from Bergen, Norway, and she spoke broken English. There were kids at school who jokingly referred to her as a dark elf. Both girls were 16 at the time of their disappearance. They became friends at Bertrand High, where they shared a homeroom. They played soccer and loved bands like Nirvana and the Smashing Pumpkins. They stayed up late watching John Carpenter movies and binging popcorn and Kit Kat. They got straight A's in class. They dressed up as Beetlejuice and Catwoman for Halloween one year. They were inseparable. Alicia was planning to go to Harvard Med and become a dentist when she grew up. And Heather wanted to be a wildlife photographer for National Geographic. More on that later. They weren't as popular at high school, but they had loving families and they always had each other. On October 17th, 1998, Heather and Alicia biked their way home to the Bertrand Nature Preserve on a massive park covering 80 square miles of dense forest that blanketed the low-lying mountains of the foothill. Witnesses at the visitor center saw them arrive at noon that Saturday. They told their parents that they were just looking for a short hike up to Bald Head Rock, a scenic lookout about 3 miles from the parking lot where they chained their bike. Tons of the people hiked on the trail on the weekend, and the girls were planning to be home well before night. In fact, Heather and Alicia were planning to see the movie Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman later that night at 8 p.m. But 8 p.m. came and went, and the girls' bikes remained untouched in the park. No one had seen them. No one had heard from them. By then, Heather and Alicia's parents were frantic. They'd already called 911, and a couple of officers had gone out to the Bertrand Nature Reserve to search for the missing teens. All they found were the still chained up outside the nature center. Over the following weeks, a search party had combed, and huge search party combed to the mountains. Hundreds of volunteers and SAR personnel checked behind every tree, looked within every bush, turned over every rock, searching for clues. They found nothing. Eventually, the news reports stopped. The missing posters on telephone poles and side shots started to fade, fall off, or were even pasted over with flyers advertising local bands of politicians running for coming up. Sad as it was, the case would have disappeared into total obscurity were it not for a strange discovery almost 2 years later. In 2000, a local Boy Scout troop were camping in the Bertrand Nature Preserve when one of the kids stumbled upon a single rusted, single-lens reflex, an SLR camera, half buried in the dirt near the campsite. He didn't know it then, but the boy had just discovered Heather's most prized possession. She'd taken the camera with her on that fateful day in October 2 years prior. When the authorities had developed the camera's film roll, they uncovered a breakdown of that day's events. The first half of the pictures were known colloquially as the day shot. These pictures were all time-stamped on October 17th, 1998. Likely had taken over 2 to 3 hours while the girls were on their hike. The photos showed squirrels scurrying along the canopy, alien-like mushrooms growing on the moist ground, and various angles of Alicia hiking to the Bald Head Rock. There were shots of Alicia silhouetted against the afternoon sun, and the others showing her disappearing into an endless forest. Heather had a good eye for composition, and she knew how to make the most of natural light. It's sad looking at the day shot. No, because you could see the raw talent of a burgeoning artist finding her voice. She would have made a great photographer home now. Another thing people noticed was the way Heather captured Alicia's beauty in the photos. The way she brought out her best friend's hazel green eyes and accentuated her sharp facial bone structure using a juxtaposition of light and shadow. There was already speculation among their classmates that Heather had a crush on Alicia, and some even believed that they were a couple. Though Alicia had many boyfriends in high school, there was no evidence the two girls would ever hook up. The two girls had ever hooked up. Some speculated that Heather may have killed Alicia after she'd rejected Heather's advances, and then Heather killed herself, but there was no evidence of this from eyewitnesses or the photos themselves. What was clear from the day shots was that both girls had a zest for life. They were both having fun and goofing off. There were some forced perspective photos of Heather and Alicia pretending to eat a downed tree. These pictures contradicted one of the authorities' early theories regarding the girls' disappearance, that they might have taken their own lives due to depression. It was a reasonable theory, given that both girls were bullied in school and had no real friends outside of each other. But they never left a note, and neither their parents nor their classmates ever felt they were depressed. What really got the authorities' attention was a second set of photos on the roll. They called them the night shots. These shots were time-stamped on October 31st, 1998, full 2 weeks after the girls were reported missing. They were taken in the middle of the night, with a camera flash for 30 minutes. Creepiest of all was the subject matter. The night shots were almost entirely random images of the forest, tree limbs, bushes, rock. There were no signs of civilization in them, just endless darkness beyond the foliage, caught in the camera flash. Many of the photos were out of focus, showing random green and black blurs. The most famous photo was a close-up of what appeared to be the back of Heather's head. Her curly hair filled the frame. Amongst those bushy strands were dark red streaks. Blood. The photos on Heather's camera were never officially released to the public. They remained sealed in evidence until sometime in the late 2000s, probably 08 or 09. That's when someone leaked them to the now defunct true crime forum called Missing Incorporated. And they eventually found their way to Reddit. Once people saw the photos online, the Bertrand hikers case took up a whole new dimension. Suddenly there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of posts discussing the case, providing theories behind the girl's disappearance. All of them centered around the night shot. There was a popular theory that the girls had gone off the trail and become lost, and the night shots were a way of signaling rescuers with the camera flash. There was a massive search of the Bertrand Nature Preserve on Halloween 1998. The SAR personnel were likely close to the girls at the same time. Another popular theory posted that the girls became incapacitated. Perhaps they got lost and fallen off the trail in the dark. Both girls were too injured to hike out. Maybe believe that Heather died from her fall, and Alicia used the camera to see her friend get a bearing where they had landed. Some armchair sleuths even believed that Alicia killed Heather, given the close-up of Heather's bloodied scalp. But there was no clear motive for such a jealousy, a verbal fight that had escalated into something physical. Perhaps Alicia pushed Heather, causing her only friend to accidentally fall to her death. Alicia, overcome with guilt and worried that she would become arrested for murder, then took her own life, but not before providing a confession in the form of some random photos. I didn't believe such theory. Hi, Sam. Thanks again for all your support. I'd love to see what what info you had on Bertrand. An hour later, he sent his reply. Do you mind meeting up at Coffeeland on the corner of Western and Whitsett? This caught me off guard. When I received Sam's message, I was staying at a hotel in Atlanta for a true crime convention. But I was there to run a panel on missing persons cases. A quick Google search revealed that Coffeeland was not far from my hotel. Sam's reply came moments later. I know you're in town for a true crime con. Brian? A tall, elderly man stood up from his table at the coffee shop. He was balding with silvery hair, and trimmed beard. He wore nice sweater vest, khaki pants, and horn-rimmed glasses. The man reminded me of a college professor. Yes, I said, shaking his offered hand. It was soft and smooth, like he used a lot of moisturizer. My name's Samuel, he said. Please, have a seat. Can I get you anything? We both got coffees and returned to our table. The tiny shop was busy with locals coming and going. Students and amateur screenwriters sat at nearby tables, their heads buried in their laptops. I must say, I really liked your take on the Bertrand Hikers mystery, Sam said. It's the only one that I think is close to the truth. Thanks, I said. My podcast presented a different take from all the others that covered Heather and Alicia's disappearance. I concluded that someone had kidnapped them and likely murdered the girls, and that the night shots were taken by the suspect. But the evidence I presented was not in the night shots themselves. Rather, it was in the day shots. The ones that most people glossed over. A good friend of mine is a professional photographer and asked to examine the leaked photos, hoping that she could shed some light, both figuratively and literally, on the night shot. I wanted her to brighten the pictures without losing too much information and reveal something or someone lurking behind the darkness, just beyond the camera. She did just that. But all it revealed was more empty. There wasn't anything more to see, she said. The night shots have been poured over hundreds of times online. My friend paused for a moment. But I did take a second look at the daytime photos, and there was something strange on 205. Photo 205, named because of its timestamp of 2:05 p.m., was a shot of Alicia and Heather smiling for the camera as they stopped at a lookout point on the way to Bald Head Rock. The camera was likely placed on a rock so it could capture both girls. They appeared happy and carefree in the sunny proto selfie. The picture they captured just showed how much wilderness was in Bertrand Nature Preserve, and you can see a massive forest stretching for miles and miles behind them. Take a look at the bottom far right, she said. Oh, sorry, my friend said. I'm making shitloads of mistakes here. I've lightened the shadows in the background. Stared at the location, but all I found were trees. What am I supposed to see? It's right there, between those two trunks. She pointed to a black dot in the far corner. An oddly shaped stump. What is that? It's a person, she said. My friend showed me another copy of the photo, this one even brighter. Extra exposure had washed out the girls in the foreground completely. But now I could clearly see a human shape standing in the trees below them, watching. The figure was out of focus, so we couldn't make out any details, but it appeared to be a man wearing all black. God, I gasped. We sent the enhanced photos to the authorities, who thanked us for the new evidence. It was the first break they'd had in the case in over a decade. The discovery made the local headlines. Heather and Alicia's families even sent us thank you cards, but ultimately didn't lead to much. Without any bodies, there was no evidence the girls were kidnapped, and the lurking figure in photo 205 was too grainy to identify. All the forensic analysis could conclude was the suspect's gender, male, and a rough estimate of his height, 6'3". Still, the discovery made my podcast go viral, and it was a nice prize after spending months researching the case. So, you think my theory is the closest, huh? I asked. That someone kidnapped them and likely murdered them? Sam sipped his coffee. It was getting late, and the shop was starting to clear out. More than that, I think I can prove it. My eyebrows raised. This better not be another conspiracy theory. I run across plenty of weirdos in my true crime career. People who believe the missing persons were abducted by aliens or murdered by. Their stories always start semi-sane, but the more they spoke, the stranger things got, until you found yourself listening to how one of the 9/11 hijackers, an interdimensional being who traveled from an alternate Earth to stop the lizard people's invasion of Washington. What proof? Sam sat back in his chair and let out a deep breath. My brother passed away a month ago. He began. He was a handful. My two failed marriages, no kids, no friends, never got along with anyone in the family except me. He was a drunk and a compulsive gambler. Fucked over almost everyone in his life. My brother was a hoarder. He spent most of his life roaming the country and working odd jobs in construction and living out beat-up RV. When he died, I was stuck with the unenviable task of clearing out all the junk that he had accumulated in his 65 years on this earth. Stench when I opened the RV made my eyes. There was so much rotting garbage and mountains of. Found 3 rat corpses. 3! And I don't know how my brother had stuffed everything into such a small space. Sam set his drink down. Anyway, I'm throwing out boxes of his stuff, and when I came across these old photos, there was one on top of that. Immediately caught my eye. Know what it was? Shook my head. Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out a glossy printed photo. The kind which you would pick up from a CVS or Walgreens back in the day. It was semi-wrinkled and smudged with grease, but as soon as I saw the image, I choked on my Mexican latte. The photo showed Heather and Alicia. And not just any photo, but it was a picture taken on the same day they disappeared, on the same trail up to Bald Head Rock. But this was a new photo, not part of the day shots that I'd pulled over so many other times. In the picture, Heather had her SLR camera slung over her shoulder. And as soon as I saw that, I knew the photo wasn't from her camera. Who took this? Sam grinned. My brother. Are there others? He nodded. But I can't show you here. Why? Sam sat back in his chair, studying me with pensive eyes. I need an assurance from you first. You want money, don't you? I had armchair investigators ask for payments in exchange for evidence and or interviews in the past. I always turned them down. Felt icky, tasteful. Why would I ask? Sam looked hurt by my question. I'd given you thousands of dollars. Sorry, I've had bad experiences. I said, hoping that I hadn't ruined the deal. I mean no offense, and I'm very, very grateful for all your donations. I really am. You don't do this for money, do you? Sam asked. No, of course not, I said, even though at that moment I was reminded of how often I'd hoped how I hoped I could turn this side hustle into a full-time gig. Running a podcast was a lot of work and money, especially one that involved such heavy research. Not to mention all the logistics involved with interviewing witnesses and loved ones. I want to bring closure, I said. I always felt that the only thing worse than losing a loved one in a violent crime was having that person go missing instead. At least a murder can give you a definite answer. A missing person was like a never-ending haunting, a spirit taunting you with the possibility, however faint, of a miraculous return. You want the truth, Sam said. Don't we all? Sam finished his coffee and then got up to go away. I live not far from here, he said. Sam's house was a modest, one-story, ranch-style bungalow. I immediately noticed an old RV in his driveway as I parked out front. I stared at the run-down vehicle as I walked past the home's entrance. I'm looking to sell that thing once I finish cleaning it out. Sam was waiting on the front porch to let me in. As soon as I did, I noticed Sam had brought much of his brother's RV hoard inside. I had to squeeze past stacks of crumpled magazines and cardboard boxes of random junk in the living room. Sorry about all this, Sam said. Once I discovered the photos, I decided I need to do more of a thorough investigation on my brother's belongings before throwing them all out. Fine, I said. The house was dark and musty. Heaviness lingered in the air. Felt like walking underwater. Sam had led me to a kitchen table, the one pristine spot in the house, where he pulled out a dusty photo album. It was big and black with a leather exterior. I found the rest of the photos in here. The album creaked as he opened it. Inside were pictures of roadside attractions, long stretches of highway, national parks, and random people. Random people. It looked like a photo journal of a relentless traveler. There were pictures of temperate rainforests in the Pacific Northwest, desert canyons, big cities, rest stops, and lots of forests. Sam stopped as he reached a section of photos of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where it begins. The first page showed pictures of the Bertrand Nature Center and parking lot. I leaned in. There were the girls' bikes tied up outside. Flip. I'm not going to read that bit. Pictures of the main hiking trail, trees, mountain vistas. There were the photos. There was the photo of Heather and Alicia. The same one Sam had showed me at Coffeeland. Alongside it were other photos of the girls. Some of them smiling for the camera. Others where they were struck semi-serious poses like they were fashion models. They appeared to be having a great time. I don't understand, I said, staring. He took all of these? Apparently. He'd struck up a friendship with the girls, Sam said. The old man was about to turn the page when he stopped. I instinctively reached out to turn it myself, but Sam kept the page closed. Sorry, I need one more assurance from you before I continue. What's that? Stepped back, suddenly aware of how close I'd gotten to the old man. What I'm about to show you is very sensitive. It could do irreparable damage to my family if it ever got out, Sam said, staring into my eyes. I never noticed how dark his eyes were. They were a deep brown, almost black. In the low light of his house, I need you to promise that you'll keep this a secret and not tell anyone, not the cops, not even the victims' families. No one. A million alarm bells rang out in my head. There's something wrong here. Very wrong. I'm sorry. I kept backing away from the old man. I need to, and accidentally stumbled into a tower of magazines falling onto the dusty floor. Sam shot up from the table. How can he move that fast? Within seconds, the old man was looming over me, offering his hand to help me up. His spindly fingers danced in the air like spider legs. I crawled away from him, but immediately bumped into the wall. Sam had me trapped in the corner. He grinned, flashing yellow teeth. You want to know the truth, don't you, Brian? The mystery nags at your soul. You've been so good to me, filling this world with intriguing and tasty mysteries. I wanted to give you a little treat in return. Kept his hand out. I still didn't take it. Instead, my hand shot to my iPhone. Do you really want to call the police? Sam asked. I don't think your parents at 2165 Sycamore Park Circle would much appreciate that. How did you all... I know all about you, Brian, the old man said. I know about the apartment where you live. I know the last girl you dated. I know how late you stay up editing your podcast every Thursday. You don't have a brother, do you? I slowly got up to my feet. My iPhone still in my hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. I don't want to hurt you, Sam said. I brought you here as a friend. Besides, you're not even my I'm not your friend, I said. But my voice was low and weak, barely above a whisper. I wanted to shout, scream. I wanted to deck the old man with a sucker punch, but all I could do was stand there stiff as a corpse. I won't. You won't what? I won't tell anyone, I said, putting the iPhone back in my pocket. I swear. Very good, Brian. Very good. Sam offered for me to take a seat at his kitchen table, but I stood right where I was, with a clear shot to the front door in case he tried anything. Fine. You can remain there. Sam grabbed the photo album and held it up for me to see his contents. Turned the pages. At first, I thought somebody had scrolled over the photos with red marker. Then I realized the crimson was part of the photos. Each shot a different angle of the girls laying in the dark forest. Been ripped to shreds. Limbs torn off, intestines splayed across the dirt. It was like a pack of wolves had killed them. I hunched over, fighting the urge to vomit. They didn't see me coming, Sam said calmly. But they heard me. Out there in the dark trying to capture my true form on film. I didn't like it. What are you? I stepped back closest to the exit. They say fear spoils the meat, Sam said, closing the album of horrors. But when you season it like I do, it only gets tastier with time. So long as no one knows what happened, I feed on the mystery as much as I feed on the flesh. Why them? Why Heather and Alicia? Sham shrugged. They happened across my path. I felt something wet in my hands. I had balled my fingers into fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Adrenaline coursed through my veins. Sick. You know that. You sick, perverted old man. Charnel Sam laughed in response. He kept laughing and laughing as if I had just told him the funniest joke in the universe. His mouth grew wider with each guffaw, eventually becoming so wide it revealed row upon row of teeth within his dark maw. Each row moved independently, like a separate mouth. Sam's laughter turned into an ear-splitting chorus, so loud and discordant that it took me a moment to realize what it was. The cries and give me just. Apologies for that little technical hitch. But I'm going to be finishing this story soon. I just lost my page. Yeah, do bear with me a second. Okay. So, Charnel Sam laughed in response. He kept laughing and laughing as if I'd just told him the funniest joke in the universe. His mouth grew wider with each guffaw, eventually becoming so wide it revealed row upon row of teeth within his dark maw. Each row moved independently, like a separate mouth. Sam's laughter turned into an ear-splitting chorus, so loud and discordant that it took me a moment to realize what it was. Cries of agony from the countless victims, Heather and Alicia included. I sprinted for the door, accidentally knocking over a tower of boxes on my way out. Each box contained bones, femurs, ribs, clavicles, and skulls, all of them human. I called the cops as soon as I was back in my car, speeding away from Sam's house of horrors. How could I not call them? That creature had to be stopped. The police descended upon the location within the hour. By then, Sam, his RV, and the photo album were all gone. But the house was still hoarded with junk and plenty of bones. A CSI team found the remains of 41 victims in Sam's demented collection. All of them were from missing person cases that had grown icy over the years. I took some consolation from the fact that Heather and Alicia's parents were among the first to be notified. When the FBI brought me in for questioning, I told them everything I've just told you. They think Sam is some deranged serial killer, not a supernatural entity. That last part was just a fear-induced hallucination, at least according to my therapist. There are currently a nationwide manhunt for my biggest fan. Charnel Sam is out there somewhere, roaming the highways, looking for his next meal. I've gone into hiding too, witness protection. The authorities will claim Sam will never find me or my family here, but I don't believe them. I broke Sam's promise. He'll never let me forget. The only comfort I have now is the fact that that if I were to disappear next, the FBI would immediately know who did it. Charnel Sam feeds on the mystery as much as he feeds on the flesh. That's why I've posted this story, to warn the world. Because Sam's most likely victim is someone who has never heard of him. Don't let that be someone be you.
That was great. That was really good.
That one was really good.
That one was really, really good. Wow.
Thank you very much. Whoever wrote that story was brilliant. Unfortunately, I am going to have to dip out of this stream, but I want to thank you for the pleasure of being a part.
No worries, man. It's been nice having you. You know, you're most likely gonna be here for other ones.
I hope so. Really hope.
It's gonna be good.
We'll find some more stories.
100%.
Oh, hell yeah.
100%. I think we have one more story to go through tonight now, which is my one. And then we will reconvene after it and
To
discuss.
leave once.
Yeah,
I'll leave
and
once.
I will say, anyone watching, if there's a particular Reddit story that you want us to read out, or if you are a writer of stories, like, post it in the Discord and let us know. Like, we'll be happy to read out the story as long as it's like not going to break any terms and conditions, and like, you know, all the doodads that when the hoops you've got to jump through to stay on Twitch and everywhere. But yeah, let us know. Get in the Discord. Do your thing.
Maybe next time I'll read one of my shows, although it's not horror.
I mean, I fully plan on reading some stuff from this right here. The H.P. Lovecraft complete fiction.
Ooh.
It has, I'm pretty sure, every single one of his stories. Like if we just look at the content, the contents in here, you know, you've got every single one of those contents is its own individual story, and
Oh wow.
you have it go on to the next page as well. So there's probably around 30 to 40 stories in this book alone of his entire collection of stories, and he is known as the father of cosmic horror. So that's definitely something we will be doing. But we shall let you go, Marauder. Shall let you get up to your night plans and routine or whatever you may be doing. Thanks for coming out.
Night,
Welcome. Thank
Tom.
you for having me.
We'll
Night to the family.
We'll definitely have you again. Definitely have you again.
Yes. I'll
God damn it,
definitely
but there
join.
he goes.
Have a good evening, and please enjoy the rest of
Have a good one, brother. We'll see you soon. Let us get in to this final story that we have here. Encounters as a late night radio station host. Written by Front Driver 3595. I host the midnight to 5 slot on WKTS, a local radio station in my hometown of Wouldn't You Like to Know? In the deep hours of the night, it's mostly dead air or sleep-deprived callers. You'd think I'd get used to strangers spilling their guts at ungodly hours, but trust me, it never gets old. My job is to keep me and them awake entertained, and sane. I've heard every story before. Tipsy night owls sharing past regrets, ghost encounters, college kids saying fuck all. Anyway, my work isn't exactly nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat content, but it pays the bills. Besides, I like the strange stories and loyal listeners. They keep the job interesting enough. And sometimes I have encounters that bring a whole new meaning to interesting. One odd call-in was from a trucker named Red. All I could garner was that he was a burly man with a southern drawl as thick and slow as molasses, low and raspy, like he'd just smoked a pack before phoning in. He started calling in several months back, introducing himself with a gruff, "This is Red," on Route 39. After a few calls, I recognized his voice right away. Like clockwork, his calls would come in around 3 a.m., just as most listeners were winding down. At first, he was a breath of fresh air. He was polite, calm, and genuinely curious about whatever I was talking about. He'd always have a story to share and a laugh to exchange. Mostly he'd share cheesy ghost stories or tales of being chewed out by his boss for a late delivery. Always light and fun. But after a month or two, his story started getting weird. One of his punctual calls, he bluntly asked, "You ever see something you just can't explain?" His voice for the first time was timid and uneasy. I retorted, "Red, I host a midnight show, unexplained as part of the job description," expecting him to divert into another dumb tall tale, but he didn't laugh. "Right," he said slowly, "but I mean really strange things, like towns you can't find on a map." I joked about him taking the scenic route, but he ignored it and went on. "A couple of days back, I was on a stretch of Route 39 I've driven to for 20 years. This time around, it felt different. I pressed this little town I'd never seen before. I figured maybe it was new, but something felt off. No signs, no cars, no people either, like driving through a movie set after hours." The story didn't faze me much. I chalked it up to him missing his exit or stumbling upon some ghost town, but every night after that, he'd call in, retailing even stranger stories. One night, he described seeing a row of unmarked black cars, their hazards all blinking in perfect unison. As he slowed down to a crawl, he saw that all of the cars were empty. I go out for a second, but felt a sense to get out of there. Wasn't a soul around. Well, at least, felt like they was waiting for something. Another night, he shared his encounter with a woman on the side of the road. Her figure was distorted by his lights for a moment, but as he passed her, she was just visible enough that he could make out some semblance of a face. Maybe it was too dark, or I was too tired. Why's that? Her face. I can't get it out of my mind. It looked like it was stretched too tight across her cheeks. All rubbery, her eyes were dark and hollow looking. For a second, I wanted to laugh and chalk it up to exhaustion, but the mental image he'd just painted I couldn't get out of my mind, and I wasn't even there. He continued describing her in eerie detail. Her smile was strewn unnaturally over her face, like she was only a mockery of what a human is. He talked about feeling a spike of fear hit his gut, hoping and praying he was just having sleepless hallucinations. She didn't wave him down or look distressed, so he drove past her. I looked in my rear view, and she was gone. Internally, my thoughts could be summed up in either "this guy is a giant troll" or "what the hell is going on." However, I chimed in. Maybe she hitched a ride with a ghost, trying to keep things light, but his silence told me he didn't find that funny. After a week or so, he became a bit of a staple on the show. More people started listening in just to hear Red's 3 a.m. adventures on Route 39. I tried to brush it off as good radio, but I couldn't shake his tone. Each time he called in, he became more and more of a shell of his once cheery self. His demeanor was restless and sporadic. He had a undeniable, deep-seated sense of conviction, like he really believed what he was experiencing. Yet, I still trusted his senses about as far as I could throw him. But it was a night in late September that things changed. He called in a little after 3, and this time there was no hello or this is Red, just a tense, quiet breathing on the line. I knew something was off right away. Red, you there? I asked, leaning closer to the mic. His voice began as a hushed murmur, like he didn't want anyone to hear him. I'm still on 39. Something's wrong. The highway's changed. What do you mean? I asked, my tone already faltering. It's like I keep driving, but the road keeps turning. Every time I think I'm going to reach a town, exit, anything, the road just. His scattered breathing stopped briefly. Bends. I started to get that uneasy itch that comes when something feels a little too real. Where are you headed? I was just passing through, en route to the next stop of my delivery. Now it feels like I'm going in circles. There was a pause, and I could hear the faint rumble of his truck engine in the background. He spoke again, each word shaking or cracking. I swear I haven't seen a car in hours now. I passed the same damn billboard 6 or something times. Last stop on Route 39, it says. A cold chill worked his way up my neck. Red, maybe you should pull over, I suggested. It was a good thing listeners couldn't see the look I had on my face at that moment, and I can't imagine the look that was on Red's. Wait it out. Call someone. I tried, he said, his voice nearly inaudible. There's someone following me. My heart skipped a beat. Hell, it skipped 5. What do you mean? An old beat-up sedan keeps coming up my rear view, no matter how fast I go, just close enough I can see its headlights. I could hear the tension in his words, tight and choked like a wire pulled too taut. Ready to snap with the slightest strain, I started babbling some explanations before he cut me off. Well, wait, it's right behind me now. There was a beat of silence. Driver slumped over, but I can see their eyes. Their eyes wide open. They're looking at me. Oh my god. His tone now turned to a desperate whine. I was at a loss. Red, get off that road. Find somewhere safe. He ignored my plea. Their eyes, like that lady's, dead. Nothing. Then, for what felt like whole minutes, there was nothing but static. Soon, a soft exhale from Red. The road splitting, he said. His voice removed and almost trance-like. A real dark path, and the others got a light at the end, like a building or something. It's too far to see. Go towards the light, I urged, gripping my desk hard. Get out of there. There was another pause. It was long enough that I almost thought he disconnected. It's gone. I took the lighted road, and the car's gone. I let out a heavy sigh of relief. Fear's cold grip on me let go in an instant. Thank God. I'm glad you're okay, Red. Get some rest as soon as you can. He chuckled, low and humorless. I could hear all the fear and fatigue well up in his last words. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Thanks for staying with me. The line went dead, and I sat there, staring at the receiver. I waited, half expecting him to call back, but he didn't that night, or any night after that. It's been a few months since my last call with Red. I've done some digging, hopeful for the guy. I can't find any incident reports for Route 39, missing truck drivers, or the like. That's why I'm asking for help on this. If anyone can lead me in the right direction to finding out about Red's fate, I have quite a few other stories I'd like to share if you are interested. Thank you. That was a really good story. And that ends off the evening. I feel like tonight's been a lovely distraction. not only for us here that are experiencing such bad weather, such bad flooding, because of Storm Bert that's hit us here in the UK and especially in Wales, but I feel like I'm hopeful that it's also been a good distraction for you too. Our guests tonight was good. We had Avila Vendetta that goes and hosts her own show, which she will be getting back into soon, called Vila's Wicked Wednesdays. Very similar to this, stories, horror, creepypastas. And we had Marauder out with us, which was filling in for Vasily, because Vasily's not feeling the best right now, but he's doing good, and hopefully he'll be joining us soon. Genuinely, thank you guys for coming out. I would like to raid someone, but I don't know who would even begin to raid with a stream like this. So I don't think we're gonna raid out necessarily tonight. I don't think we really have anyone that we can raid, just because of the type of stream it is. But genuinely, thank you guys for coming out. We aim to be doing this every Sunday, probably around the same time of 8 p.m. Every single Sunday. You're gonna hopefully be seeing the content as well if you follow the socials over on the LinkTree. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that for you guys now. It has everything on there that you can possibly want right there. It has the YouTube channels, it has the TikTok. I've recently hopped on this new Blue Sky social media that I'm going to be doing some more stuff with. So I'm going to be popping that on the LinkTree too. Again, thank you guys for coming out. We will see you next time.